Attention! The video you are about to watch has been edited to remove spoilers in the event that a viewer has not seen or read this work. If you wish to watch the version with spoilers, please click the image at the bottom right-hand corner. If you haven't seen the movie or just want to watch this version because you can, you may proceed to watch the non-spoiler cut. Hey guys, it's me, OptimusPhillip, and the Spider-Man movie review marathon continues with Spider-Man 2, a movie I had been scared to death of from age 6 to 13. Now that I have actually watched the movie again, it's just wow. This movie is now officially my favorite Spider-Man movie. It's not just any ordinary superhero movie, it's about the consequences of every action you take. That's part of the reason why so many people like it. It's so much more complicated than just Spider-Man punching Doc Ock in the face and destroying his super weapon. Basically what happens is that Peter's personal life starts crumbling down around him due to his double life, and he starts to question if he should go on being Spider-Man. This self-doubt eventually causes his body to take action and he loses his powers. This causes him to take action and stop being Spider-Man, his wrong thing. This has a lot of consequences, not just for him, but for the city as well. Crime goes up because there's no one around to fight it. Remember, this is before the MCU. And at one point, someone actually dies in an apartment building fire because ordinary Peter is trying to save someone on another floor. Eventually, all these consequences give Peter a wake-up call, and he sacrifices his dreams of being with Mary Jane and leading a normal life so that Spider-Man can help mankind, thus doing the right thing. Continuing with this theme is Dr. Octopus, or Doc Ock, who had the best of intentions, but what he did to act on those intentions turned out to be a dangerous course, aka his wrong thing. He knows that this is the wrong thing, but he thinks he can make it right by trying it again, just a little differently. However, these adjustments actually make the wrong thing worse, and then he has to pay for his actions and...
Until his former employee, Doc Ock, turned him into this.
But we'll get to that in the nitpick section. There are some more subtle examples with Mary Jane and Harry, but the big ones are Peter and Octavius. But of course, there is more to a movie than just the theme. The special effects are great. Well, at least for the era. There are more than a few scenes where the CGI isn't entirely convincing, but that's a minor thing, since the rest of the movie has either great CGI or no CGI at all to be bad. The characterizations are also pretty good, with Peter being as uncertain as he was in the comics, especially in Amazing Spider-Man 50, Harry being as vengeful against Spider-Man as he should be, and Doc Ock being portrayed as the tortured soul who never intended for anything bad to happen. Portrayed especially well with his tentacle and his exchange about where to get the money for the bigger experiment. The tentacles tell him to steal it, but he says he's no criminal, but they get to him by telling him that the real crime would be not finishing the experiment. Even Mary Jane is characterized the way I feel she should, though she wasn't perfect either, but that's mostly a casting thing. Now, while I applaud the people behind the movie with their originality with Doc Ock, I also applaud them for all the comic book references. From the shot of Peter throwing away the costume, a reference to the Amazing Spider-Man 50, the bit where Peter sees a mugging in progress and wants to help but doesn't, a partial reference to Amazing 50, and all the comic book characters we got to see, even if they're just there as fan service. John Jameson, who became Man-Wolf in the comics, is here. Dr. Connors, who became the Lizard in the comics and was initially planned to in this movie, is here, and Betty Brant returns from the last movie. Another thing I like about the movie is the cinematography. The first movie had an aspect ratio of 1.85. Amy actually wanted to keep that for this movie, but he realized that in the shots of both Spider-Man and Doc Ock, that would crop out the tentacles. So he went with 2.35 for the movie's aspect ratio, and that was a smart move. But what really sells the cinematography for me is the scene with
Wheel of Explanation!
No, hey, look, it's not like that. I want to spin that wheel, Bob.
Your dad's an evil mastermind!
True, but spin again.
Your dad's mind go bye-bye!
Kinda funny, but spin again.
Your dad's a liar, pants on fire!
where they use that old horror movie trick of tilting the camera to one side, a Dutch angle as it's called in the trade, to get the terror across in your mind. It's tilted, so your brain thinks there's something wrong and you're uneasy. Now, that is not to say that the movie is flawless. As I mentioned, there are some CG bits that are obviously CG, and MJ also seems a little miscast. But there are also other issues. For starters, I noticed a continuity error that I don't think anyone else has. During some scenes, if not the whole movie, Spider-Man's costume switches between red and black and red and blue. Minor nitpick, but it definitely puts me off. I wish they'd gone with the consistent blue throughout the movie. Also, the score is a bit off in some places. For example, in the hospital scene, all the noise we really get is the screaming of the doctors and the sound of the tentacles moving around. Now, those work okay, but maybe a slightly dramatic or haunting score would be appropriate there.
Anybody here take shop class?
But again, that's minor. My next minor qualm is the aforementioned. That feels like it's supposed to be an after credit scene, heading up the next movie since.
Your dad was giving away exploding pumpkins at the office. Have you ever been
But moving right along, another thing that I have seen mentioned as an issue is the way they destroyed Doc Ock's mini-son.
Spider-Man supervillain team up!
The simple fact is that stars, even stars that small, have tremendous heat and gravity. Our sun burns at over 4,000 kelvins, about 3,723 degrees Celsius, or about 6,740 degrees Fahrenheit, while water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 100 degrees Celsius. Simple math, the river would boil and the star would destroy New York and eventually the world. But the big one for me has to be the experiment failed due to a miscalculation on Otto's part thing. Even if he had calculated right, he was trying to replicate the sun so he'd get the same outcome. Yeah, it started from a small ball of non-existent form of tritium. Another tiny nitpick, tritium isn't rare and it's a gas, not a crystal. But still, stars form from gas and dust. For those of you who don't know the process by which stars form, I'll put a link in the description to a video about it. And one more thing that I just can't resist mentioning is at the planetarium party, John Jameson is introduced as the first man to play football on the moon. That's funny, I will admit, but it would have been a whole lot more amusing if we'd got some footage. But still, not even the calculations thing can determine my enjoyment of the movie. If I suspend disbelief, since this is a world where mutant spider's venom can serve as a mutagen that can give you spider powers, I can believe that in this world, that sort of thing is possible. Combine that with how enjoyable the rest of the movie is, and you get a movie that I give a 9 out of 10. See you next week when I do Spider-Man 3.
It's all my fault. I drove Spider-Man away.
He was the only one who could have stopped Octavius.
Yes. Spider-Man was a hero. I just couldn't see it. He was a thief! A criminal! He stole my suit! He's a menace to the entire city! I want that wall-crawling arachnid prosecuted! I want him strung up by his web! I want Spider-Man!
Good old Jonah.